Big friendly hellos. Welcome to the first Notary Governance call of August 8th. Let's take a look high level of what we have on the agenda. This week, we broken the categories into three parts. So notary issues and things that are directly impacting you as notaries existing in the program. These are things like the election. These are things like the inactive removal process. These are things like bug reports. Then we're going to move into proposals. Grouped in this, we also have updates from the working groups of Enterprise Fill Plus. So KZ will be joining us to give an update. And we have plenty of time at the end of the call for anything that might be on your mind that you wish to discuss. So with that, let's dive into it. If you're joining right now, I just want to point your attention to the updated schedule. Since we took a break off for July as a holiday in the States, kind of modified the schedule. But as long as you're following these meetings on your calendar, this will auto update for you. But just as a heads up, today is August 8th, and the next call will be on August 22nd. So that should self-reflect on your calendars if you have any questions about it. If you need anything at all, you have a governance team here to back you up. So we all have a specific role in how we support the program. You could reach out to any one of us for any topics that you may need, or tag us in a thread on Slack or GitHub and we'll help you out. If you're not sure who to reach out to, you can always ping me and I'll be happy to jump in and try to point you to the right person or make sure that it gets tagged to help you as you go forward. All right, notaries, big friendly hello. We'll start off with the SLA. So I'll put here in chat the link to the Airtable. Thank you so much for taking the time to fill this out. As always, what's really helpful about getting this SLA input from you is not only does it kind of show and demonstrate your participation in the program, but you get valuable feedback for us as we look at the roadmap and the work that we're doing to make sure that this program is effective and utilized for you. You can tell us how much time you're spending, and we can make sure that we're allocating tooling or focusing our attentions to make sure that that minimizes the burden on you and you could maximize your signing as you go forward. So thank you so much. That Airtable is right there in chat, and I'll put that again at the end of the call. So that goes a long way. Appreciate it. All right, we talked about this on the last call and also the three before it. So this is kind of like the last update with the removal of notaries that have been inactive, just as a catch up. So this was filed in issue 911, and this was a tieback. And it essentially says when you look at the registry or when you look at our stats, we have 86 notaries. But if an applicant goes through there and they're trying to get someone to sign, they're finding that there's on average, less than that number. So over the last couple of months, we've been culminating like, hey, who are notaries that for whatever reason may not have remained in the program? And so over that time frame, we kind of mapped out, hey, this is what the removal process would kind of build to. So back in June, we kind of announced this, like, hey, if you're a notary and you're no longer active, you're not coming to meetings, you're not signing data, you're not responding to GitHub or Slack, then it makes it really difficult for applications to reach you or the program to really kind of support. So this kind of time frame went back. And on the last July 25th call, we talked about this and provided the list of notaries that we've seen no activity from and that we had listed for removal for that participation reason. And what that activity really is looking at is the output. Can we at least have something signed or contributing to this overall program? And this was part of that selection process in the application. Looking at scoring for notary A, who might be newer, but might not have as much experience or contributions that they can make, but they had a lot of time and they wanted to help grow the program and put that in. So those scorings played a large part in why certain notaries got selected and why some applicants may not have been. So this was a good application to say like, hey, are there notaries that for whatever reason started out, thought this was a good fit, and for whatever reasons, it's just not a good fit anymore. So that's really kind of the driving force behind this as it goes forward. There were a couple notaries that had issues with their multi-sig or with GitHub, or someone left the organization and it really wasn't handed over. It happens, and that's totally understandable. And thank you so much for taking the time to kind of let us know. So I just wanted to reiterate, if you're ever in the program and you're encountering a technical issue, like your ledger can't connect to verify your address in the registry, or you can't find something, or you're not sure how to sign it, or you just have any questions, feel free to just tag me in Slack or tag me in the actual application, and I'll be happy to help you walk you through it. If you have any kind of long-term technical solution, there are contractors that are working on these back-end systems for us, and they're very receptive and they're very responsive. Sorry. And so what you can do is you can just essentially file this bug report, and this will let you actually ask any information that you might want that we can then go back and help. So the link to the bug report is right here at the bottom. I filed bug reports for anybody that might have had an issue, and we'll be able to move the conversation out of Slack and into those bug reports and make sure that we can get you the support that you need. So inactive notaries that are on this list, we published this last week on the governance call, as well as the discussion that went forward. And we said essentially, like, this doesn't need to be finalized as far as like an end all be all, meaning that we want you to stay. We want you to be successful. We want your contributions. So thank you for being here. So all notaries that wanted to remain in the program that might have had an issue were encouraged just to fill out an application in GitHub, just explaining to the community for transparency what might have happened and that, yes, they want to stay in the program. The reason why we asked for this in GitHub was that it would be transparent and public and decentralized. So essentially, rather than DMing myself or any member of the governance team, it's kind of siloed. By putting it in GitHub, everybody gets to kind of see it and say, okay, hey, these are the notaries that are responding and going forward. So those notaries that wish to remain are Codon Health, Coffee Cloud, Coda, ipfs Japan Consortium, NFT Star, and Non-Entropy Tech. So Roger, we got your applications. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and like just remove those from that inactive notary list. And I'll follow up with you to see if there was any kind of technical blockers that were on that, and we can go back. CB10, I see your hand. I'll finish this list and then I'll come back and hit your questions. So thank you for that. It says no image. Galen, can you confirm, or am I still screen sharing, or can you not see my screen anymore?
No, I can see your screen. I see inactive notaries slated for removal, notaries who wish to remain.
Okay, CC, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. We'll circle back with you or make sure it comes back. It sounds like it's a technical issue on that side. So notaries that are scheduled for removal, just for everyone's kind of awareness on these are notaries that we've seen no engagement from, or it's dropped off over the last few months. So these are notaries that are not coming to governance calls. These are notaries that aren't signing data applications. These are notaries that are not discussing any kind of proposals, whether it's their input, thumbs up. And these are notaries that are unresponsive in Slack, which is okay. We had the last election in November of 2022. So, flash forward 10 or 11 months, an organization might change. The person who filed that application and onboarded might have left the company. There's a myriad of reasons why this could happen, and it's totally normal. As we have 86 notaries that are inside the program, that's a lot of different organizations that essentially spans the whole world. So anyone who's scheduled for removal, this isn't the end. If you want to see this and it's 2-3 months later and you'd like to come back, happily encourage you to reapply in the next election, and we'll just take that information, selection will be made, and then we can onboard you back in. So any notaries that are removed coming up, please, by all means, you're welcome back anytime that the situation may change for you, and you can come on site. CB10, I see your hand raised. I'll pause. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to address regarding Big Data Exchange being slated for removal. Is this a proper place to address the issue? From my perspective, I feel like I've attended almost like most of the meetings. I'm a level 2. The reason why I didn't sign initially because we are a marketplace. I want to ensure that there's impartiality. But ever since that the rule stated that we have to be more active in signing, I've signed one this week and I stated my reasons. In addition to all this, we have a lot of participants who come and ask us privately about LDN applications. I think you can check with a lot of the notaries here. We are quite involved in LDN. So I'm surprised to see our name being there, despite us being a level 2 participant, which only requires 2 to 4 hours each week.
I'd love to have you. Thanks for joining the call, and thanks for letting me know. What I'll do after this call is I'll file that application issue just so it's public and transparent based off this call, and then we could follow up. I appreciate you flagging like those LDN signs and those things you're doing. And that's where signing that Airtable in the very intro of the call is just so helpful to get that. So thank you for that. I'll follow up with you, and yeah, we'll have you stick around. Again, a lot of this list was made from people that we hadn't heard from for weeks, if not months, or since the election took place. So if you are here and you want to remain, love it, love it, love it. Thank you for letting me know.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you too. Thanks for coming. Anybody else who might be on this list, please, this is why we have these calls. This is why this is public. This is why this is recorded. So if there's anything that's coming up, this is a great chance, or just follow up on the issues. So if you are on the call and there was kind of a block, like, hey, we weren't doing it before, or hey, this was our reason why, just file this issue. Again, this is meant to be more transparent and public, just like CB Tan on this call saying, hey, here's what's going on. But yes, we are still here. We're not just like some mystery org or anything that kind of changed. And if you file this, it makes it public and it makes it transparent. We're asking that if you've done this, to please do this by the end of the week. What's nice about this is that we're going to be moving forward, but if we haven't heard from you by like a certain time, there does reach a point where we have to kind of take this off and then just invite you back. So any notaries that might be on the call right now or watching this or see your names tagged in Slack, this is the chance over this week to file this issue and just say, hey, I'd like to remain. I like the program, XYZ reasons, but I'll be here. Thanks for having me, and we'll go forward. So just file this issue and we'll come through and help you as you go. All right. Hey, notaries, let's talk about the 5th round of election. So essentially, the last time we did the election, we announced this at Phil Lisbon. So this was back almost 1 year ago. And we kind of outlined, what does the notary program look like as far as like 4th round and going into 5th? So essentially what the expectations for notaries are is like operating in good faith, varying disclosures that are upfront, participating in the program, whether it's this call, giving feedback, or receiving information on those proposals, committing to like no self-dealing, no kind of fraudulent behavior that's been outlined by the Trust and Transparency Group, and then also just serving the network. How are you looking to grow it? How can we make the Filecoin ecosystem more stable? So what we'll be doing in the coming weeks is kind of prepping this up for the 5th round. I can tell you, as someone on the back end doing the admin for these, they are very time consuming and very labor intensive. And so what we'll do is we'll make a proposal. Hey, the election is coming. We'll get input from you, kind of like outlining on the dates. If everybody in the community kind of has a chance to weigh in, that proposal will go forward. Then we'll kind of move step by step on like, what does the election look like? What are the steps that go forward? There's a slide deck. I linked it in this presentation that you're looking at now in the notes for the Phil Lisbon talk that we gave. And in this Phil Lisbon talk, we just kind of outlined this in the 4th round. So if you were a 4th round notary, this looks very familiar with you on like, hey, what are the expectations like for a notary? What will you be doing as a notary? How does the timeline look? So in the coming weeks, we'll put this together for the 5th round for your input, and we'll collect all the signal that we can to kind of kick this off for you in a very transparent way. So again, the 5th round of elections is coming. This will be happening sometime in fall 2023 based off input. And if you were a notary that is removed, happy to have you back. We'll just file a new application here for you in the coming weeks as we go forward. So I'll pause there and see if anybody else has any issues or thoughts or any comments they want to add.
I had a quick comment. Excuse me. Sorry. I think one of the things, like we've heard a number of times, that what is the frequency? What is the cadence of the elections? Like, how many? Are we going to try and have more notaries? Or are we going to try and have fewer notaries? How will the selection be different? We've heard a variety of these questions. The answer is we don't know yet. Our plan is to still have this next election cycle in the fall, but it's going to come with, like Kay is saying, a set of proposals to the community for the existing community notaries to weigh in on. We would love to see more notary applications from different groups that are different types of notary roles. For example, we have one auto verifier from Glyph using GitHub. That is a notary. That is a technical solution that somebody made that said programmatically we could be a notary. This would be our diligence process. And that is a notary that went through the normal election cycle. If there is another group, a developer team, an organization, an individual that says we want to use this type of programmatic diligence through a smart contract or through a different kind of staking structure or idea, this is how we would do diligence. This is how we would award DataCap. This is how we would, engage in the program. Like, we would love to see, more of those ideas. Sorry, coffee's attacking me. We also are going to have, we know that we will have some new standards and guidelines and policies around organizations, people applying as an individual, as a member of an organization. We have seen some, what happens when that individual leaves that organization, but they, as the individual, still want to be a notary. Does it travel with them? Does the organization maintain that role? How does that responsibility work? We've seen some of those questions. Our process has been, like a lot of our processes, a little bit looser to give us the flexibility to learn what works for the community, what works for the state of the network. So we will be making proposals on those things, and would love to also see additional proposals from the community about, what do they think the notary pool should look like? What are some of the ways that we should, as a governance group and as an existing group of notaries, perform diligence on the applicants to be notaries? So all of that is still to be determined in this process. So just because we have done it 4 times, there are things we have learned from it. That does not mean that it will be the exact same process and way. There will be times to engage in the proposal for how the election is going to go. I just wanted to make that explicit and put that on everybody's radar. Danny?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask a couple of things. Are you thinking of, so the last notary round was the first where you came up with these different classes of notary. And I know it was both a little difficult to work out which, especially for a new applicant, which class you should be in. And also there were lots of things, sort of the proportions were, very, not arbitrary, but there were, you had to do a certain set of things across a bunch of things. Is there any thought to either revising that, given what you've learned about what people are actually able to do, and also maybe a bit more sort of guidance on that? Because I know that I was somebody who, I think many of us, including me, kind of erred on a higher level and then realized we couldn't keep to that level. And I think that's one of the things that we sort of have heard from notaries who find it challenging to reach the level they have.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the SLA, the kind of service level agreement around engagement levels, because there have been proposals in the past to have different types, like different level notary types. And for this election cycle, we did not explicitly say you're a notary level 8, and that means you get this many privileges. We didn't have levels like that. We had sort of engagement levels that said, how committed are you on a weekly and monthly basis? And that is also a metric that we were using, as Kerry was just talking about, around inactive. I think that metric will remain. Again, it will be a proposal and we'll see. I agree that adding some additional clarity and guidance around it. I was drafting a reply here for more information. And I also we have built a dashboard. I would like for that information to be typed more consistently and accurately to this dashboard. So it is a more public trackable view that says, what are the ways that you have been as a notary engaged in the program? What are your quantitative metrics for engagement? And if they are at a certain level, great. We don't want those to be, just punitive, to say okay, you said you were going to attend every governance call ever and you missed one, so you're out. We want those to help the people that are assessing the applications benchmark. We want to help them so that when you're applying, you have a sense of what the duties will be. And then we want to be able to track progress towards them and then be able to say, okay, we had this many people claim that they were going to be the highest level of engagement. We made this dashboard. How many of them missed the mark? And then it's a place to start a conversation. I think that we have as you mentioned, some of these are like harder to keep track of. And I think that a lot of times the notary community boils it down to just number of signatures, which in my opinion is very much the wrong metric. I do not want to send a message that says signing client applications is the most important thing to do. It is an important part of diligence, and it is a clear on-chain trackable thing. So that makes it very easy to keep track of and tie back to one address. But there are many ways to participate, and there are many ways to perform diligence. So I think that, we could do a better job of like writing up what some of those can be. We could do a better job of piping some of these to these dashboards to have like a agreed upon clear metric. And then I think, getting support from the notary community to say, like, what are the ways that you feel you are engaging and participating in the Filecoin Plus program specifically, not just the Filecoin broader ecosystem, but specifically in the Filecoin Plus program that you think you're sort of not getting credit for. And if there's some of those that we're not capturing, like those would be great places to have more information.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Such a timely question, Danny. Thank you for asking that. If I'm sharing screen, one of the things we looked at directly for that is back in the third round of election, the way that scoring took place, it was based off hours. So a notary would say, I'll give 2 hours a week or 10 hours a week. But it was so very difficult for a notary to kind of say like, hey, I'm a very trustworthy or I'm very active, when they might spend 10 hours on a very difficult application or taking the time to draft up one proposal. So the goal of that SLA for like having the levels was that there was some kind of output tied to that. If I'm hearing you correctly, that's a little bit tricky to kind of like outline and establish. So that's why I'm really grateful when people sign in for these calls, because they can list self-reported contributions. This is the first time we've done this. And in that self-reported contributions, the governance team or myself can look and say, okay, this person came and they spent their time approving applications, reviewing, doing their own onboarding. And this kind of will make it a little bit clearer. But it's such a good flag. How do you pick your SLA level when it's months in the future you don't know, and how to do the scoring on that? So thank you. I'll bake that into the proposal, maybe have a separate one for input. That's really good feedback. I appreciate you raising that. And then I see in chat, there was 2 questions. Charles, really good questions. Thank you for that. So the first one is, round 5, do we still need things like social account follower counts? That's a good question. So again, we have these in the first and second and third applications because having a social presence online helped drive participation and awareness to the program. So if somebody had a very large pool that was active, it was a good way to look. Candidly speaking, in some of the applications in the 4th round, people would list like a very high subscriber account to Twitter, and you would see like 3,000 or 4,000 followers. But if you looked at their engagement on a post, it might be 0. So it's very clear to say that these are not active people that are following this Twitter. This is just a bot, or these are just like a farm that goes out. So that'll probably be one of the things that we're looking at in the 5th round is what are the true drivers of success for the notaries? Not just for your success contributing to the program, but the program overall. So that's a good question, and that will come up in some of the proposals. And the second thing that you asked, Charles, in chat, just for everybody on, it's will it be open to new notaries? Yes. So that's pretty much the purpose of the 5th round is anybody who is in the 4th and wants to remain can do so. And anybody who's been on the outside that wants to get involved in the governance of this program can do so by signing an application. So yes, the 5th round will be open for new participants. Great questions. I'll pause and see if anybody else has any thoughts or any questions. All right. Well, we'll kind of switch gears a little bit. We're lucky to have KZ on the line to kind of walk us through some updates on the working groups with Enterprise Fill Plus. KZ, floor is yours.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everyone. Quick update here. So for the eFill Plus working group, again, we're a smaller, the notaries are a smaller subset of the larger notary pool that Ray was just talking about. There was about 30-ish that had joined almost a year ago. And since then, we've been growing slowly. We've kind of topped out. It's not a large demand in terms of number of applications coming through, but the time to reply and to do due diligence, the expectation is a little bit higher. So we created a separate SLA, and we also were looking for notaries who were elected from the larger group that were looking to support private data sets, because not everyone was at the time. So where we are now, we're still looking to continue to have around 20 active notaries. So you need about double that amount, because notary, like Kay explained, right? Sometimes they're available to work, sometimes they take some time off, sometimes they're doing other things with their work and business. So it's a nice number to have around. Let's say we want 20, we need around 35, 40. So any of the notaries that were part of the group over the past 5 months that literally, similar to inactive notaries in the larger groups, didn't reply, had told me that they no longer want to do it. Those type of examples, that we had 10. We had around 10 that we're looking to remove from the group, just to keep it streamlined, something that I can manage. And I also opened it up via proposal to anyone from the larger notary pool who wanted to join in and supported the SLA requirements and the types of applications they're reviewing. So I heard back from around 7 active notaries, and some of the notaries that I had listed in the proposal that were planned to be removed, they had replied to me and said, hey, we want to re-engage. So you can see in the notes of the proposal, I had updated a lot of that. The plan right now is, again, removing around 10, adding around 7, which is positive. And the other step, as eFil is focused on layers of trust, we added a KYC check for all applicants, a KYB, a business check for all of the clients. We're also requiring now a KYC check for all the notaries, because we have the integration available. So back in earlier this year, February-ish, we partnered with a company called Toggle, who is a decentralized KYC third-party product that does the checks, stores the data in a decentralized manner that we were supportive of. That integration is now set up with Storage, where any of our applicants and any of the notaries that have a GitHub user ID can log in, complete a check for free, and have their username verified. So once they complete an ID check and a liveliness check, their account is then verified. And if they are a client, it'll show up on any applications they have as a label. And for notaries, we'll be able to pull a list of those who passed the check appropriately. Anyway, as part of that, I've asked all the notaries who are active and any ones who are wanting to join, so again, it's probably around 40, to complete the third-party check over the next week or so. Any issues, let me know. Those that complete it and are active, they'll stay the same. Any of the new ones that complete it, we'll add them to the multi-sig in the near future. And again, we're still planning to remove around 10. So that's the update here on the notaries related to the eFil group. Okay, Ray, I'll turn it over to you if there's any questions.
Yeah, KZ, there's 2 questions in chat. So Charles, thank you. Chow Dow. They wanted to ask, hey, do we need to split their KYC before August 14th? And do they wait the results, or how does that KYC process work?
Yeah, that's the proposal I talked about as of yesterday. We set a timeline to say, okay, if you're interested in joining or leaving or remaining, let me know. And then I've updated it yesterday to say, over the next week, we can extend it a little bit longer if needed, but it should take 5 minutes of your time to do a KYC check. Again, it's individualized, so each user ID is represented by one person. So the idea is to do it by early next week if possible. So if you have a problem, let me know. What's the other questions here? I
want to know, do you have to be an existing notary to participate in eFil Plus, or can somebody who's not an active notary in the larger base join this specific group just as an Enterprise Fil Plus notary?
We had a few just general community members sort of reach out with interest, just because of the way it was set up a year ago, where we had asked elected notaries with experience understanding of the rules, responsibilities, who wanted to participate, to join. We're just keeping that set up for now. So I would recommend anyone from the community who wants to join this specific working group, apply for the V5 election, whenever that is in the fall. Once you're elected in that regard, then we'll have another separate addition to this working group, probably around the same time. So yeah, for now, it's just those who are active. Cool, thank you.
KZ, we had this second slide.
Yeah, this is actually, you could remove this slide. Sorry about that.
Got it. All right. Open issues, open proposals. So the first one, I'll turn it over to Simon for a quick update on what's going on with the DataCap removal feature. Simon, floor is yours, bud.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Just want to make an announcement that the DataCap removal feature is finally implemented. We've tested it out and everything seems to work fine. As of now, this feature only works for the Ledger S. We're working with Zondax, the external team, who we've been working with, and we're waiting for them to make the updates so that the feature will also work for the Ledger X. As of now, this announcement is only really regarding the tooling side and to let everyone know that this is ready. For the process and guidelines, these are still being fleshed out. But if you'd like to help with this or have any ideas on how we should approach this, please feel free to reach out to me on Slack or make a discussion post and we can discuss it with the whole community to get everyone's input. Once the update is made for the Ledger X, I can make an announcement in the Phil Plus Slack channel to let everyone know. But that's all for me. Thanks, K-Ray.
That's awesome, Simon. Thank you. Looking forward to that. One of the questions came through in chat just before we go on, and it had to do with the election. It said like, hey, there's a lot of open discussions right now. Would it be better if we waited until like late in the year, probably until next year? That way we don't have to worry about this application until all of this is figured out. Great input. Really like that. Well, that's what's helpful about having these proposals. There's, a couple dozen, nearly 100 members in the community that are active as notaries, plus those that want to join. So when this proposal comes in, looks like this is coming from you, Mifu, we can just have it as a comment like, hey, I think that this should be delayed until Q1 2024 or whatever your feedback is. Love to have that. So if you want to kick that off or just wait until I make the issue, love to get that feedback. So thank you for sharing that. And please share those in those issues because those go a long way. And speaking of that, we had another community issue. So Galen, I'll hand it over to you for 774.
Yeah, just wanted to take time to, bring this up. I think a number of the people on the call have weighed in on either Slack or GitHub. There's been a lot of really good active discussion on this. I think there are some interesting points that are being brought up. So it's like a lot of really interesting information from various team members around, the different variables involved with raw byte power and how, pledge collateral changes. Like, even if you have not been tracking this, I would say go read into some of the discussion comments on it. There's a lot to learn there. We are always happy, as the governance team, to hear, engage, participate in these civil, professional, solutions-oriented conversations. Our role as the governance team is to execute the existing FIPS and kind of program structure. So FIP3 is in place. That has set out the Filecoin Plus program. From that standpoint, we have, created some additional programmatic guidelines around how we run these proposals, how we, select notaries, and those things are pitched to the community through our various GitHub repos, discussed in our Slack channels and on these calls. And we keep moving the needle forward. So this specific conversation is around, sunsetting the Phil Plus program and the subsidy. They're, different points around what would be the downstream, near-term, long-term impact of that. What are the justifications for it? So as it is, this space is a forum for kind of focusing on talking about sort of the existing open proposals across the entire community, but also that is a FIP conversation. And so there are some parts of this that are outside of the purview of the Filecoin Plus governance team, or outside kind of the scope of this call or some of our Slack channels, because they do require input from the entire broader community, and they do have a much bigger impact. So our goal in these like different channels is to kind of continue to try and make our way through, like, how do we keep this conversation specifically focused around the notary governance process, open issues like the DataCap removal feature, when are we going to do the next election, those sorts of things. So just wanted to like call attention to that. I'm sure it's probably on a lot of people's radar, and then it is not something that we're, turning a blind eye to or ignoring, or saying it doesn't impact us. It is just that, there are different conversations that happen at different levels in this big decentralized ecosystem. So it can be a little confusing sometimes to know like what is the best, most right forum. With that said, like we will be, coming out with some different blog posts around the direction that we think the program should be going in the near term. I think that it is very hard to predict very long term how this program or the entire network is going to be shaped. I think there's a lot of merit to having different types of subsidy models and proof of concept models and ways for sort of the broader deal making marketplace to subsidize certain behaviors. So I think that there will always be, in many markets, there are always interesting use cases and needs for some kind of subsidy system. So I think that it'll be really fascinating to see how the program develops in the next couple of years. Just wanted to see if there were questions about this. I think the questions in the comment are around enterprise and KYC. I think KZ is on that. Just wanted to open up channel on 774 FIP discussion 774. Okay. Like I said, link is there. Check it out, read through the comments, weigh in. Also join in Slack. There's some discussion happening there on kind of the pros and cons, and everyone in this ecosystem sees a different slice of the ecosystem. I definitely do not see all of it. And I'm, I know some of my blind spots, but not all of them. So it's always really great to have different people in this community that see, your own expertise and slice of the pie to understand what's working and what isn't, and help us as a whole team, shift the network in a direction that is going to continue to try and raise all of the water level for all the boats. So thank you again for the time. I'll pass back to Kerry. There's no questions or comments on that one.
Hey, thanks for outlining that, Galen. I appreciate that time. Everybody, Danny put the link in chat. It's right here in the slide deck or in the Slack channel if you're watching. And a really long issue. Lots of great reading, lots of great input. And this is really the most helpful engagement from the community to make it not a centralized process, but really open, transparent. And so you can see a lot of good thoughts, feedback as this discussion unfolds. So if you're a notary, if you're watching this or you're engaged in the community, thank you for checking this out. Thank you for those of you that took the time to file this very well-written proposal and then really get this conversation out of threads in Slack where it's really hard to manage into something where it's more transparent and easy to kind of flow with. So really appreciate that. Thanks for that. Well, that was it for like new updates or any kind of things that we wanted to put on the radar. This is open time, open time. So if you're on the call and there's anything on your mind, the floor is yours.
I like how it switches to pictures of all of us to see who is actually wanting to say anything. I guess I mean, just to fill the signs. What events are coming up? Is the team? Is there anything happening in? Is there a thing happening in Vegas at the moment?
I know we have a bit of an expert on the call that might be able to weigh in on some events that are coming up. Rachel, you want to do a quick intro?
Okay, I genuinely wasn't setting that up. I was sitting going, oh, like I want to know like what the shape of the rest of the year looks like. So sorry.
I am happy to give you all a rundown. Hello, everybody. I'm Rachel Horn from the foundation team on the comms and marketing and events side of the house. Thanks for letting me join in today. A couple of events to flag for you all. And I wish I had the dates at my fingertips, but I'll put them in the chat as soon as I'm done talking. We are hosting an event. Our friends at MetaPals are hosting an event, developer focused, Phil Jakarta, and I believe it's September 1st. We're also going to have a team on the ground at CoinFest Bali. So if you're planning on being there, please let me know and we'll plug you into our happy hours and events there. We will also be hosting an event at Phil Seoul around Web3 Korea Blockchain Week. That is not the right title, but I will put all these dates in the chat shortly. And then the big thing that I want to flag for you all is Phil Vegas, which will run August 2nd through the 6th. Everyone who is thinking about becoming a storage provider, already a storage provider and looking for new opportunities, interested in the future of decentralized storage, what artificial intelligence means for the future of decentralized storage and how it interplays with the tools and resources you're providing as storage providers should be on the ground in Vegas. It's happening at the Park MGM. After I'm done talking, I'll throw a registration link in the chat here as well, but it's phil-vegas.io. We have some incredible keynote speakers joining us from Emo-Capital and others who are really going to paint that picture for us and talk about the vision, a forward-looking sort of what does decentralized storage mean and what will its impact be on the global economy. And we will have meetings of ESPA, Decentralized Storage Alliance, and other groups on the ground as well. So there's plenty of networking opportunities and speaking opportunities if you're interested and you're looking for a chance to speak about what you're working on. There's going to be workshops. There's also sponsorship opportunities. So please feel free to reach out to me on that too. And if someone wants to drop my email address in the chat, or you can reach out to me on Slack at Rachel Horn, and I can send all these details your way. Does anybody have any questions about those events? I'll find the dates for everybody. Awfully quiet.
Well, I think they'll be looking forward to the dates. Rachel, thank you so much for stepping in.
Oh, good. Galen, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I grabbed some. I think these are correct, but please.
Yes.
Let me know. And there's the, I think that's Phil Vegas registration link, and then also the Phil Jakarta registration. Great.
Harry, hello. I see that in chat you had asked open topics. Was there anything on your mind or anything you wanted to bring up? I'll take that long pause as no. If anything does come to mind, feel free to go. Anybody else? We'll do one last round of input if anybody would like to bring anything for the community. All right. Well, I guess that'll be that last call. Thank you so much for coming to this first call of the morning. Reminder, there'll be another one taking place at 0100 UTC. Same kind of basic agenda, same kind of points. but just giving everyone in a different time zone a chance to kind of make their voices heard and tune in. For those of you on the call, thank you so much for your time. Those of you who ask questions, thank you. If there's anything you need, please let us know. Otherwise, have a great one. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Friendly hello, guys. Welcome to the second call of August 8th. Let's take a very high-level look at what we have on the call. A lot of this time is dedicated to notary issues. So like the removal of any notaries that we haven't heard from, checking in on that, and then a lot of conversation about what we're thinking about for proposals in the 5th round of election and hearing your thoughts on any input you may have as we start to think about this going forward. The second is proposals and enterprise working group updates. KZ and Simon were on the call in the morning. I don't think that they're going to be here due to their time zone, so I'll speak to those issues for them. And then we'll end up with discussions on like 774, community filings, and we should have a lot of time at the end of the call. Like always, if there's anything we talk about that you'd like to speak to, just shoot a hand up in Zoom. We'll give the floor to you for whatever comments you may have. And then at the end of the call, as always, we'll go over it. So with that, just a friendly check-in, make sure your schedules are in line. If you add this call to your personal calendar, it might change. We keep the one right here in this link updated. Today is August 8th. The next call will be on the 22nd. There's your friendly governance team. We show this every time. So if this is your first time calling in, you know who to reach out to. If you're unsure, you could ping me and I'll happily route down any kind of questions you may have and any kind of help you need. Feel free to tag me and I'll try to route you to the best POC. All right, with that, hey, hello, notary stuff. So I think the first check-in is SLA. To those of you on the call, thank you. We appreciate your time, your participation. I'm going to post in chat the Airtable link right there. Again, just as like a friendly plug on why this is so helpful, aside from knowing like who's on the call and who's participating, we collect the self-reported contribution hours. Why this is so helpful is when you look at like roadmaps that the team is working on, whether it's tooling, whether it's documentation, this is a huge part of how those metrics are measured. If notaries are spending too much of their time or like way too much on like reviewing applications or going on that process, what can we do to simplify that to make it easier? So that's why that data is used. And it's also helpful for SLAs, like what notaries are really active. If we haven't heard from somebody in a long time, we can see if they're still coming around or if this has dropped off. So it's right there in chat. Thanks for filling that out. It goes a long way. So checking in on the notary issues. So this came up a lot in Slack conversations and came up on the last call. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of hit a pause button so that everybody could kind of understand this, have a chance to comment, and this didn't feel like it was too rushed. So this stems from 2 issues that were filed from the community. And the issues basically say that if you look in the dashboard, there'll be 86 notaries. But when somebody comes to get an application signed, there's no notaries to be found. And so is there a way that we can take out some of these notaries that might not be signing or might not be active for any myriad of reasons? So the goal was that if a notary had maybe stepped back from the program, we could just take them off. They could come back whenever they were ready to rejoin it. So this was filed from the community. And we talked about this on the last couple of calls, starting with June 6th. We're like, hey, this was kind of the proposal. What were the thoughts? And this kind of had like a blessing to pass forward. So we move forward. Once all the SLA stats were shared, we kind of had a list of like who really wasn't around coming to the calls, who wasn't like participating in GitHub, and who wasn't signing any applications. So we reached out like, hey, here's the SLA numbers that we had. Were you still interested in becoming a notary? We heard back from some. We didn't hear back from others. So the list that was put together was signed basically on like what participation did they sign up for in their application and what was like an incentive or a reason to kind of be here now. And some came back and said, hey, I have a problem with my multi-sig or my LV1, and I'd like to be removed or have an issue filed so I can get this fixed. So really helpful. I just wanted to share this with everybody on the call. If you have a technical issue, you can raise it to me, but I don't want to serve as a blocker because what I'm doing is essentially reaching out to those same dev teams and kind of playing a middleman. If you want to cut me out, we can go directly to those dev teams. So we've talked about this on past calls, just a friendly reminder that if you file this bug report in the front end verifier, we can run down any technical issues we have. I filed this for some of them, and we're going to wait and see like what's coming back and hopefully get those resolved for you with a tech issue as soon as possible. So thanks for filing, and we'll get that all set. For those that we haven't heard back, it's a very short list. If you see your name there, it doesn't mean that you're out. It just means that we haven't seen you around. So I see some names that are on the call right now that are on this list. And what I'd like to say is if you still want to be a notary, love to have you. So the notaries who wish to remain, they filed an application in GitHub. The reason for this was just to make it more transparent. So if we had a proposal to take the notaries off, it felt disingenuous to just have like a Slack message or an email that might not be public. So the goal was that any notaries that wanted to stay in the program just kind of make their case known. Because the removal was filed from the community, it's kind of taken as like, let the community know what you want to do, because there was a standard as far as like participation or what you need. If there's an overall problem with Fil Plus or you want to see some changes implemented, completely understand that. Make your voice known. There's some really good conversations taking place, but still make sure that you're still participating, like coming to calls or being available for questions or issues. So those slated for removal, if you're keen to stay, again, love to have you. Here's what you just have to do. After this call, end of week, please log into the GitHub repository for the Notary Governance, and you'll see that you can just make a new, very simple issue and just say, hey, I want to remain a notary. I might have had a change in leadership, or I might have stepped back, or whatever the reason may be. Just list it and then say like, yeah, I'm able to still do the duties of notary, or I'm going to be doing a pivot and I'll be back and doing this at this time, but just open and transparent with those issues. So if you're a notary on this list and you want to stay, please just make an issue by the end of this week, and we'll be happy to kind of run that down for you. So I see some names on this call right now. I'll send you a DM Slack, just a reminder. But again, we need to make sure that this is public and transparent. So that's the best way to do that right there. If for any reason a notary is removed, they are more than welcome to come back in the 5th round and reapply when they're ready to kind of start signing DataCap and doing the roles of the notaries. During the 4th round of election, we kind of shared these as like, what is a notary role and what should they be thinking about when they're applying? And it boiled down to these 5 points. And really what these points are is guiding principles for a notary who's like a steward or a benefit, not a beneficiary, like a steward of the network that's running it through to make sure that it's supported in the right way. So the next 5th round of election is scheduled to take place sometime in fall of this year. The reason why I say sometimes is there is a lot of coordination that needs to go into these. So just as a catch up, the way that these elections start with a proposal. Hey, we're going to have the election, then the proposal on like what regions we're looking for, what are some of the roles of the notaries, and then really kicking it off in those discussions. We got really good feedback on the morning call, and I'd like to just echo that here and then open it up for any more feedback. So some of the feedback on the morning call was, hey, on the 4th election, we talked a lot about levels and like what was part of our application, but we really didn't understand like, how do you forecast 8 months in the future if you're going to have time to really contribute to it? So that was such a good point that I wanted to pull up the deck that was used to kind of talk about the 4th round of elections and make sure that this was on your radar. So if you look at the screen right now, this was the deck from Phil Lisbon, where we kind of talked about the 4th round of elections, and we have the timetables, the scoring. But really the key point of discussion that came out of that was, how do we look at participation? And participation in the 3rd round was done strictly on hours, where a notary would say, hey, I spent 10 hours this week or 20 hours this week. And what we found was that it was like very difficult to pull out if a notary was active in contributing or just active for the sake of being active. So the goal was to maybe separate participation to contributions, like how is the network benefiting from your participation? And that proposal came up in 630, and that was changed to the engagement levels. So rather than being based on hours, it was based on what you were doing to kind of contribute and have that in a measurable way. So in this 5th round, we'll be really, really looking for your feedback on how do those levels work out over the last 2023? What lessons learned do you have? What would you like to see changed? And really kind of play around with this in a way that works for you to honestly enable scoring. What's nice about participation is that there were some new notaries this year that might not have had a higher stake or a score in a certain category, but they had committed to really spending a lot of time on the network, either documentation, comms, application signing, which gave them a higher score, which enabled them to get in. Hence, the removal process seems fair in that regard, or somebody might not have been selected solely because they didn't forecast this. So it's a really good flag that as we look forward in the next round of elections, we get this forecasting right. So thank you for this. I'd like to kind of come back to this election, mute myself, and hear any thoughts you guys have about thoughts on the next coming election. Since I don't see a lot of lines unmuting, I'll expand that to any notaries that might be on the call that are part of like the notary removal that have any questions on this process or anything that they want to talk about or any kind of flags. The floor is yours. If you're one of these notaries and you have any questions or discussion, please. Danny, I was just about to say, let's go.
I know. I finally can. So, have you had any idea about the number of people who've applied? So that was have there been any more sort of asking to be reconsidered since that list was written?
When you say reconsidered, are these notaries that are scheduled for removal?
Yeah, the ones who wish to remain, because I know somebody was in the last notary meeting, and they were on the slated for removal.
Yeah,
any more?
Good callback. No, on the morning call, it was just CB10, and they'll be filing a proposal to like, hey, we want to stay. But I see like Pow Power is on the call. I know that if you guys are here, love it. Just file one of those forms in GitHub and I'll follow up with you on Slack. But no, Danny, I haven't seen any come through since the morning call. I'll double check that. All right, let me tell you about what's going on with the working groups, and I'll do my best to channel KZ. So Enterprise Fill Plus had a very similar issue where they have a lot of applications that are ready to move forward. Diligence is set, the client is ready and communicative, but there was not always a notary available when needed. So when they came back and they looked at what notaries had signed up versus what notaries were participating, it was very clear that like a very small number of those notaries were active and the other notaries weren't really around. So what that meant was, although it looked like there was this very healthy ecosystem of stewards, there was no one available. So in order to kind of make this in a process where they could add more while still not making this like open and like blocking for that, what they're looking for is like removal of the notaries that weren't participating and then adding on more new notaries. So some of the questions that came from the morning call were like, hey, can you join the Enterprise Fill working group if you're not a notary already? And the answer from KZ is no. You do have to go through that vetting process of the notary application to get in, and then that additional step of KYC, KYB to be an eFill Plus notary. So with this, you do need to go through the application process, make it public, make it transparent to become a notary to be on this. But if you are, they're going to be removing 10 notaries and they're looking to add 7. So I know that we're going to have around 70 plus notaries that are in the pool. If you're looking to join this, it's a really good way to get involved and really look at those applications. Open issues, there's 2. So here's the first one. This comes in from Simon, and this is just an update on tooling to hopefully make these processes easier, more transparent, and more trustfulness. So if you look in the registry right now, there is a new feature that's coming. I don't know if this is public yet, but if you have a Ledger S, you may see this. You have the ability to remove DataCap request. So if you have an X ledger and you're signing in, you won't see this. I can't verify on my end because I'm not a notary, but you might be able to sign in and see this request proposal, log in. This is going to be rolled out officially and more wider in the coming weeks and sprints. And if you want to see more, Simon will be sharing it in the end of week. So this is just like a sneak preview. Tooling's coming to make it better. And then 774, there was a lot of discussion that took place in Slack after the last call about like, how is the program run? Where is it going forward? What makes the most sense? So 774 was filed from the community, and it's just a very clear-cut articulation of a proposal for how the network could be changed to remove the quality multiplier, but still achieve its main objective. This is where we're looking for notaries to participate. And so please, please, please check this issue out. If you agree with it, leave a note, leave a comment. If you have feedback for how this can be implemented in a very effective way to make the most benefit for the most parties involved, leave a comment. If you disagree with it, be respectful and state why. And so these are a great mechanism for the community to come together and talk about it. And really what this FIP is designed to do is like, if we sunset Fil Plus, how does that implement it? What are the drawbacks? What are the design principles and what should be considered? So again, this is filed from a community perspective. There's been a lot of conversation on it. And what I would also like to say is if you look at Slack, Slack is oftentimes a great tool to get a message across, but sometimes Slack is terrible because the threading. If folks are having a conversation in the thread and there's a question asked, it might not be answered for like 4 or 5 more comments, which makes it really difficult to really track and manage and reply. Versus GitHub, where you can see all of these replies threaded out, they can be dissected and conversated in a really effective way. And so again, really big thank you to those that filed the GitHub issue to take it off of Slack and then put it in a place where it can have like this legacy and this really good conversation coming from that. So please check out 774, a lot of really positive thoughts, a lot of really good feedback coming from that. So I hope you read it and leave your comments. So with that, because I did all the talking for Simon and KZ, you didn't have questions, that just opens it up. This was a very quick call, just checking in on the 774 and the notary issues. I'll open it up for anybody that might have a question, issue, or topic.
Hey, Kevin, how was the discussion on this last call? I guess is probably.
Yeah, great question, Mark. Thank you for that. So the call in the morning was also very quiet. Galen was on the call, and when I post the video, you can check it out. Galen just kind of shared how the foundation looks at this from the standpoint of like, the foundation will help with like the communications, the support, and that's probably a good word to use it for like governance support. But the foundation doesn't really take a stand or move forward. There weren't any questions on the line. No one had any issues or any kind of things they wanted to flag for 774, DataCap removal, or the notaries. The only questions that came up were some of the notaries that were on said like, hey, how do I remain active? What should I do? So we talked about that. But as far as 774, no real feedback or questions.
Yeah, look, I think I just put a comment on there a little bit earlier, but I think in general, File Plus, I think, has been successful today. But it's obviously just growing so much faster than what we can currently keep up with in terms of the tooling and kind of ensuring that we're getting what we want out of it. So yeah, it'll be interesting how this goes. It's a pretty big change for the network.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, that input. There were 2 questions that just came through in chat. So Fatman, what is File Plus's team stake on 774? So I don't think that I could speak for the foundation. I can tell you that from a foundation standpoint, what I'm curious and what I'm keen to see is 2 things. One, I like 774 because of the way that it communicates. I'll be candid, it really breaks my heart sometimes when I look in Slack and there's like a little bit of discourse, for lack of a better word. I like to work and be involved in a project that's like meaningful and positive as it goes out. So I do like 774 is that it makes it easier for folks to have conversations in a way that they feel heard and that their input matters, versus Slack, which I think can turn into just a little bit of the worst kind of comms where like we can't get information out, but everyone is talking at the same time. So I like 774 for the conversation. As far as like the implementation or how it goes forward, I like a program that's growing and is really contributing to the network. So whichever way leads to that, that's going to be the one that I want to see implemented and the one that I'll help go forward. So no real stand on it either way for that. But again, I'm happy to see it unfolding in GitHub in a way that's really easy to follow for that. So thank you to those that started it. I see the link for Airtable. Batman, thank you for sending that over to Cindy. Looks like it's all set. So I'll come around one more time. Does anybody have anything on their mind? My closing thought is any notaries that are on the inactive removal list, I'm going to send you just a friendly ping. If you want to stay in, please file that form. Love to have you. Anybody else, check out 774. If you need anything at all, please let us know. Oh, I'm going to pause it. David, floor is yours. I saw your hand just in time. What's up?
Hey, Kevin, really quick. I just checked out quality.datacapstats.io, and there has been a substantial drop in the likely abuse category from 8.7 to 8.8. Are you aware of why that is?
I'm not, but what I can do is I could bubble that up. What's the best way to echo back? Would you like to see that in a blog post, or would you like to see that just a comment in Slack when I find out what's going on?
Yeah, I think we're sort of indifferent. My question is, given such a rapid change from likely abuse to unknown, is it possible that bad actors have figured out how to change their change the labeling of the DataCap stats?
I know when it comes to metrics, there's always a lot of interpretations that can be done with the data. I think what the best course of action is, like, if we're seeing like these abnormalities in data or any kind of changes to metrics, is to really kind of look at that and dive into that. What I'll do is I'll bubble that up and make sure it goes. Danny, I see your hand. Thoughts?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge when you have open data, because people treat, when you're dealing with spam and things like that, like you have to deal with people using it as an oracle, right? Where you go, is this working? Is this working? So it wouldn't surprise me. I would also say with these charts, I don't know how the last cumulative, I should know because I saw this go through, but I don't know how it's cumulatively rated. So I don't know. Sometimes you hit a thing where the last one is not normalized against the other one. I've hit that in the past, but this is just pure speculation. I don't really know.
Thanks, Annie.
Okay.
David, good question. Maybe the best is if you DM me, or I'll try to see if I could run that down, and we'll see if we could put that in an update as we get more answers for you. Thanks for bubbling that up.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. All right. To quote old McConaughey, all right. Thanks for August 8th. If you guys need anything at all, we'll see you on the issues. Cheers, everyone.